This is the Awake Athlete Podcast. I'm Jessica Mikowski, mindset coach, implant-powered athlete on a mission to guide all who are ready to great heights in sports performance and life. Through the 10,000-foot view, I share teachings of living awake with the sole purpose that we all realize our innate power to be the masters of our minds. Welcome to the Awake Athlete Podcast. This is Season 5, The Interviews. Throughout the season, we'll be diving into the minds of endurance athletes to gather more perspective on mindset and to learn how our fellow athletes are discovering and using the power of their mind to advance in sport and life. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome professional triathlete Paula Findlay to the show. I first met Paula in 2018 when she was stationed in Carlsbad with her training squad, and we've run into each other many times over the years through our beloved sport of triathlon. It's wonderful to have her with us today, as I always love connecting with this beautiful woman. Paula is the current Ironman 70.3 North American champion and Canadian national time trial champion. This woman is no stranger to the podium. She is also the co-founder of That Triathlon Life with her fiance, Eric Lagerstrom, and she is mom to Flynn. Like all of us, Paula is navigating this rich itinerary of life while managing her mind and feeding her dreams. And today she's so generous to lend us her time and share her insight. Paula, thanks so much for making time to be here.
Oh, that was such a nice intro. Thank you, Jess. I'm really happy to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, it's always nice to chat with you. All right, so we're going to dive right in because these are such quickie little drops of wisdom. And I'd love to start with you. You've had a long career and you started in draft legal Olympic distance racing. And in reflection over this large career that you've had, like how has your mindset evolved?
Yeah, good question. My first triathlon was when I was 16 years old and I just turned 35 a couple days ago. So it's been a long time since I've been doing this. And my mindset has changed so much in terms of what my goal and ultimately like what I want to get out of the sport is. It used to just be about winning and going to the Olympics and high performance, and nothing else in my life mattered as much as performing well. So I was going to school and that was really important to me too, but I was almost robotic in the way that I approached triathlon, and just everything had to be perfect. And my training was like, I never missed anything. And it's still like that to a certain extent. But I think as I've gotten older, I've had other things in life that have become really important to me, like meeting Eric and having Flynn and having a house and just becoming more of an adult. So triathlon and performance is still really important, but I'm pulled a lot of different directions now, and I kind of allow myself the flexibility to be pulled those directions sometimes just for overall life balance and happiness. And I think it can become really all consuming if all you try to do is win races and, go to the Olympics. I was trying to win a world championship. It was kind of crazy as a teenager to be experiencing all of this. And I definitely didn't live like a normal teenage life, quote unquote. But as I've gotten older, I've become a little bit more, I'd say, like gentle with myself and forgiving with things that have, pulled me off track of maybe being the perfect athlete all the time.
Yeah, it's like, I love that you use that word gentle, because I think I'd even add like just this relentless gentleness that we have to have as athletes, you especially as a professional athlete. But women are just like, we're leaders. We're just natural born leaders. And, especially those of us who have a lot of fire and drive. And I think like one of our biggest things to learn is this gentleness. And it's like a softening that I don't think diminishes our competitive nature, that perhaps it actually feeds it. Like it feeds it in a new way that actually becomes bigger. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Because when I step on the race course now, I'm still just as competitive as I was when I was 20 years old or 21 years old and racing ITU, and you have to be just kind of at the edge of your fierceness all the time when you're racing. And I still can tap into that when I am in a race. But I'd say the day-to-day training and the pressure that comes with performing in sessions, because I'm training 2 or 3 times a day, and it used to just be all consuming and really trying to like target power numbers and run paces and stuff. But I now allow myself a little bit more leniency, I guess, when it comes to the day to day. But that doesn't take away from the competitiveness on the race course. So I think it is ultimately a good thing, and it's allowed me to continue racing in my 30s. I never imagined I'd still be doing this sport as a 35-year-old. So it's the mindset changes and shifts, and I think it all mostly for the good, as I've gotten older, that have allowed me to still be competitive at the age that I am now.
Yeah. And happy birthday. So
Oh,
you're a
thank you.
Taurus, right? Is that
No,
what
I'm
your
actually a
sign is?
Gemini. I'm like right at the start of being a Gemini. Yeah, I think
All
it
right.
shifts like a couple of days before me. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, happy
dual
birthday.
personality.
Yeah. Yeah. Gentle and fierce. And then they go together
Yes.
and they just create this amazing woman.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So 16 years old and you're just like out there just trying to win and really regimented. What would you look back like? What would you tell that younger version of yourself, whether just in general or a specific time, in that early part of your career?
Yeah, I would say that when I was 16 and I did my first race, I was a competitive swimmer. So I had like a training background, but I wasn't necessarily trying to win. I just was winning. Like I was really talented and I had this really good aerobic background from swimming and from doing a little bit of running in high school. So it wasn't like I needed to win, but it was just what was happening. So I became very used to it, like it was the norm, which is kind of a dangerous territory because every junior race I went to, every under 23 race, I was the best and I was like winning all these things. So it became then really challenging because you can't maintain that forever. Later on, when I got injured and I wasn't winning things. So I think that's where I would go back and tell myself a lot of advice that I've learned through the years, and that almost 5 or 10 years of time where I was struggling with injury and anemia and all of these things that were pulling me away from performing my best and performing how I wanted to race, like I was familiar with in my teenage years. So I guess it's kind of the advice that I follow now, and that's just being gentler with myself and nicer with myself and not making it feel like the world is crumbling down when I can't do one session or if I'm injured. Trying to push through it is not necessarily the best uh, path for getting back to racing. Sometimes it's just taking complete rest. And I think in my older age, I've become a little bit wiser with recovery and taking care of myself in a way that I can come back from little niggles quicker instead of just making them these catastrophic injuries that take me out for months. So yeah, if I could go back to myself or any young athlete who just feels like every day is the most important day and every race is the most important race, it's just to have a little bit of perspective and step back and think about missing a week of running versus 3 months. Maybe that's a better approach if you feel like things are going sideways a little bit, because I've had lots of injuries.
Yeah. And I want to dive into that just a little bit. As far as like this process of being gentle, right? It's not a switch that we can just flip and then the mind is on board. So I'm assuming, and maybe even still now, I know I experienced this, is this like, okay, I'm going to take a couple of days off as opposed to having to take 6 months off. But you may still be getting those impulses, right? Like but you should be
Totally.
doing something. Yeah. So that's what I want to dig into, like because there's a lot of athletes that listen. I mean, all athletes listen to this. And so a lot of driven to whatever their relevant level is, driven and, that stopping or the pausing or the slowing down is a really, really difficult quality for us to acquire and to practice. But I know that we can because you're a living example. I'm a living example of it. So when you're right up into those thoughts, how do you stay that course to this is what I know I need to do and I'm going to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I still get caught up in the what's on my training schedule and I can't miss this, and what's coming up next is so important, even if it's just one of 10 races this year. But I think honestly the year 2020, when the world shut down and there were no racing and I was just training because it made me happy, really gave me a perspective of this is how I need to live my life when the world is normal, because I was loving the day to day. I was still training quite a lot, but it was a little bit more by feel and by what I felt like doing. And I knew there were no races coming up. So it took away all that pressure of performance. And the outcome for that was I won one of the biggest races of the year at the end of 2020 in Daytona. And it was just off of training for happiness and training because I wanted to. And I didn't swim very much. And it just made me realize that everything that I do and that I've done, even still now with this regimented schedule, there's some flexibility in that. And if you allow yourself the flexibility, you can often get the most out of yourself and perform the best. So I told myself at the end of 2020, I'm going to take that mindset into 2021 and 2022. And it, of course, is more difficult than it sounds because there are more races like on the schedule. But I still try to maintain some of that mental approach to the training in the day to day as I had in 2020. And although that year was really challenging for a lot of people, I think it was one of the best years for me in terms of just stepping back and having a refreshed look at what this day to day looks like for me as an athlete. And that honestly is where the trigger switched a little bit, and I've become a little bit more chill ever since then.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great way to use memory, right? You have this memory of 2020 and this joy, which that year did give a lot of people an opportunity to shift their life in a really positive way. And I understand that, for the majority of people, it was not that. But to be able to recognize that gift and continue to carry it because it was so strong and it had obviously had an amazing effect at the end of the year, you got this incredible reward.
I think also the fact that we barely swam that year and my swimming totally was fine after that. That also was a realization that if you have to take time off of one sport, like your body doesn't forget how to do these things, and taking a week off or a month off even is going to be fine. Like you're going to come back at the other end refreshed, I think, and ultimately better off than if you just kind of try to, power through things. And that made me a lot more relaxed about if I need to miss a training session, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. So using just kind of that evidence of what happened is like, I was fine. And actually I swam really well. BJ just went through a situation where all of a sudden he just couldn't lift his shoulder like 4 months and he wasn't swimming. And these like big build weeks in the pool leading up to, he was doing Oceanside. And, he was swimming maybe like 1,500 yards. I think that was like his max swim and maybe even the yardage for the week. And he went into Oceanside and I don't even know. I think he was like a minute or less than a minute off of like what his time was the year before when he was doing huge volume in the pool. So you got to trust that like all of these experiences become you, right? Like they're a part of you now. Your body doesn't forget. It's so incredible. But this idea of joy, like we have heard this so many times, just athletes on our team and people that we've interviewed, that it's like, it's the races when they have the joy, when they're enjoying what they're doing, when they're having fun, that like they have these spectacular performances. And I really believe that this idea of play, this idea of joy is such an important part to feed into our competitive nature and equal more success, whatever that looks like for the individual athlete.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as I've gotten older and gotten to the age of, do we want to have a family? And how much longer do I want to do this? It gets more and more challenging to enjoy the day to day. And I find myself just questioning it more. And it's definitely not easier as I get older. It's definitely harder to get out the door and train, and thinking about other things that I want to do in my life and how much longer do I want to do this for. But it is the races that I've looked back on over the last few years where I've enjoyed it the most, like St. George 70.3 that I just did, and certain courses that I've just really had fun with and really am familiar with. Oceanside is always one of those that I've gotten the most out of myself and ultimately performed the best. So the mindset is completely attached to physical performance. And if you can go into a race happy and injury free and excited about it, you're for sure going to get more out of yourself than if you're dreading it and nervous and just kind of like crippled with fear or something, because racing is hard and racing is really scary. But you just have to keep in mind that ultimately most of us do this for fun. So there's got to be a little joy in it too.
Exactly. Is there anything so you've been a champion many times over in your career, and in different areas of your life. I'm sure you will continue to be a champion. Is there anything about a champion mindset that either you want to share or any myths that you want to dispel about what people think, is going on in your head in order to, take that top spot on a podium?
Yeah, I guess I've never thought of myself as having a champion mindset, but I think something that I really am good at is performing well and winning races while at the same time being nice to people and not having this super killer instinct. And not everyone works that way. A lot of people really need to go into a race feeling like I am at war with everyone in this race and I need to beat them all. But my approach is a little bit more friendly, and I really respect, and I'm good friends with a lot of the women that I race several times a year. So I honestly am like, feel happy for them when they have good races. And of course I want to win too, but I think I show a little bit of grace and camaraderie on the course, and that helps me get the most out of myself. And then when things don't go well, it ultimately makes me feel happier at the end than feeling like I was a huge failure. So that's kind of my mindset in races, is I don't have this crazy killer instinct like most people might think that winning a race requires. You can still perform really well with while at the same time, like being happy for others and being a good competitor on the race course, and being gracious when you don't win. So that's kind of
oh my
my
God.
approach now.
I mean, yeah, that's an abundance mindset. When we can be joyful for the successes of others, like in earnest, right? Like in authenticity, that's an abundance mindset. That says there's plenty of podiums to go around. And everybody's got a shot at it, but it also it expands this energy of appreciation and gratitude, and all that stuff is playing into a successful career as a triathlete, whether you are an age grouper or a professional. So I love that.
For sure.
I would say that's like an abundance mindset.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I never thought of it as that word, but that does make sense. And I think you can't win every race you do. You can't stay at the top for your whole career. So there's always going to be ups and downs. And the more you can just be open-minded about that and not let the bad times just completely cripple you and make you depressed is important. And back in my early years of racing, like in my teens, it was like that. Every race that didn't go well, I was so down on myself. And it was like a reflection of myself, almost like I'm a bad person, or it was like my identity. So in order to find some happiness in the sport, as I've gotten older, it's taken a little bit of like separating my identity and Paula as a person from my results on the race course.
Yeah. Beautiful. Awesome. I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. That was amazing.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being so generous, for being willing to come on the show. I know you're super busy, but I know everybody's going to appreciate it, and you are well loved from this house, but also from this whole community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. I feel like we could talk forever, but that was perfect. And I appreciate you having me on. So thank you.
Are the messages in this podcast resonating with you? Is there a spark that has been flamed and a part of you that is craving more? Get over to yogitriathlete.com and discover how we are forging a new breed of athlete through one-on-one coaching, our squad community, and once-in-a-lifetime adventures to some of the most extraordinary places on earth. Being a member of Yogi Triathlete means you will be awake and ready for all that comes your way. So head over there now, because life waits for no one. So what are you waiting for?